All right. Well, hey, let's dive in. I hope everybody's ready. It's 2:00, so we're going to jump in. I'm Craig O'Neill. With me today is my co-host, Michael Catullo. Michael, say hello.
Hello.
Perfect. We also have behind the scenes help today too. Our friend and colleague, Greg Kindle. Greg, go ahead and say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, thanks for being there, Greg. Greg is going to be monitoring chat for us, and any questions, please feel free to type those. Greg knows exactly how to interrupt us, and he can probably answer most of the questions as well. But we also like to answer those live. So please don't be shy. Even if you have questions or comments on some of the things, anything you want us to elaborate or expand on, this is what drives us. We really appreciate that feedback. Obviously, in these virtual environments that we've grown very accustomed to in the last several years, we don't get to see your faces all the time. And well, we miss you too, but this is how we're going to do it. Now, today's topic actually did originate from some questions that we've had with a longtime clients. What's interesting across the industry is that turnover is substantial enough that even longtime veterans of a software platform have new people all the time that are coming in and out of the process. And the digital sales training techniques don't always translate with the how-tos that we go through in some of our other webinars. So this one's going to focus very much on process, and it's also going to be rather ambiguous to the tool itself. We aren't going to just focus on the Auto Text Me product in specific, but just the general principle of digital inspections and how they can be leveraged by service advisors. Before we jump in, I felt it was prudent to ask a key question. How long have you been using DVI? And the reason I like this question is because, well, it's been around for a while now. I don't consider this a new technology. I don't consider it anything that a shop shouldn't be using, right? This is, Michael, we've seen this for quite some time now. I've been with Auto Text Me 4 years. You've been using electronic inspections as well, even before we've both been here.
It's 3 years prior to me working for Auto Text Me, which is now going on 3 years at Auto Text Me. So
yeah. Back in 2010, I was exploring digital inspections. So I liked this because what I started to see was what I've started to feel as well. And that has taken root very successfully in the industry at a larger percentage than it ever used to be. At least when I started out, even 4 years ago, I don't think that these answers would have looked like this. And the majority of people, almost 20%, 4 years or forever, right? It's been so long now, it's probably getting hard to remember a time where you didn't have this, but a lot of the other people have been on here between 1 and 4 years. Granted, this is a little bit skewed because this is pulling our clientele mostly, which obviously a lot of you are here with DVIs, but it gives you a glimpse into the fact that this is still expanding. It started expanding somewhere around that 1 to 4 years. There's increasingly fewer people who've been on it less than 1 year, and very few that have not done it at all. Again, slanted in the sense that this isn't a scientific study. We're hitting people on trial and anyone that's been on our lists, not just clients, but cool numbers. It's taken root, folks. It's become a major part of our shop processes. And that's where we're going to turn this a little bit more into an art form. Michael and I have been teaching processes with our clients for quite a while now. And even before that, in our own facilities and leveraging some particular sets of techniques. So first things first, we're going to talk about what the DVI is. And this is for the benefit of those of you who have been on it less than a year or have not started yet. This is obviously a tool for making sure that we're getting things in front of the customers a lot easier in a paperless way. It's helping streamline some efficiencies in the shop. We're removing clipboards, for example. This is something that seems second nature now, just by the virtue of most of us being in our 30s, 40s, even 50s. We've had technology around us for so long. 10 years ago, this was less and less the case with our older technicians, but I consider an older technician now, well, not far from my own age in a lot of ways. The average age of a technician is close to 40 or a little over. But this is videos, photos, simple notes on a digital document that is very clean and easy to share with the client. So it's very impressive for the customer. Now, in this particular webinar, we want to really dive into the idea behind the DVI up front. We're going to talk a lot about how we can prepare the presentation so that it can be delivered to a client in a really, really nice display. We want to make sure that we know when and how we're sending those DVIs. It seems obvious, but it is the area where most inspection processes do break down. And we're going to talk about some tools and strategies that ensure after we've sent it that the client does view it. This is a major assumption that we make when we send it, assuming that it's going to get open, but sometimes it takes just a little bit more of a communication piece to get them to open things up. And then we're going to talk about some of the tactics we use with the inspection while we consult and advise with the client on the repairs. And beyond that, of course, it has value outside of the current visit. We don't expect everything that gets inspected on a vehicle to be repaired on the same visit, but we can definitely help the client map things out. So the process, as we've laid it out, is right here. And we're going to be focusing very narrowly on the first 4 light blue status. So there's the green check-in, there's inspection, there's estimating, there's requires authorization. Auto Text Me users, of course, are going to recognize this kind of a workflow. You're going to be familiar with some of the advantages on the later half of the workflow. This conversation, just on that beginning part, leading up from the check-in moment to the approval. Now, let's jump in on this. And if you want to see a graphic of this later on, please let us know. We're happy to provide these sort of things. Let's talk about that check-in status. This is probably the most important part of the entire visit. And this really is where the inspection first gets introduced. Michael and I both talk a lot about setting expectations for the visit, and everybody's heard this term now. And we all understand that if we are not setting expectations for our clients, they're going to have their own. And the conventional business models that a lot of shops have followed for a very long time is just this: car break, we fix. That's that. A lot of us have even gotten so good at fixing that one thing with laser focus that a lot of the other items on the car go often ignored, unpresented, undiscovered. And of course, this can result in some problems. The main advantage of setting the expectations out of the gate is reducing the anxiety for our clients. And I want to get psychological a little bit here, just briefly. And I know Michael has opinions on this too, but this is where clients are first confronted with a breakdown or maintenance item on their car. You have to take ourselves out of the shop. It's hard sometimes. We've been dealing with this stuff daily. It's routine for us when a car breaks down. But for a client, when their car breaks, this is all of a sudden, they're being confronted with something they don't know a lot about. That car has been taking them places and their world is in order, and now it's broken down. And this introduces a lot of questions and forces them to reconcile the fact that they really haven't been paying much attention to the intricate, complex things that make this car thing go. Now they have to become confronted with it. And this is deeply unsettling. Questions about whether the car is worth it. Questions about, can I trust my mechanic? Questions about, is it even safe to be driving around anymore with something like this capable of breaking down? And this is where expert advice and opinions come into play. And we want to make sure that we're presenting ourselves as that professional, as that expert who is going to guide them through this visit. So the why of the inspection, I say 3 things. It is to make sure that the vehicle is safe, reliable, and efficient. And when we start communicating with our clients up front in every visit, why there is an inspection being performed on their car with that in mind, we're going to start changing the narrative of that conversation.
And you see that a lot with people's the idea that the DVI is a sales tool, not just a report on the vehicle. And that's really where if we can start changing that attitude of the DVI not being a sales tool and just being a report card of the vehicle for the customer, it will start to change the attitudes of the people who are using it and the customers who are receiving it.
Absolutely. No, this is exactly why we do this. When we're communicating with a client on the nature of the vehicle, this is a great opportunity for relational information sharing. This is consulting and advising, right? We mentioned in the beginning of this class in our registration form too, that these are not euphemisms in our job titles anymore. Our job isn't to just listen to the customer and fix the one thing they ask for, but to truly counsel and advise them on the best approach to maintaining this vehicle, keeping it in order. There's some very specific wins that we have on this for the business, for yourself, and for the client. I looked at it very simply when I started communicating our inspection process, which did not always exist in our shop and was new to some of our clients. I say, hey, I noticed we haven't performed an inspection on your vehicle And oh, that's something you do. It absolutely is. And this is why we do it. See, we have peaks and valleys in our schedule, and we understand that when the vehicle breaks down, that kind of creates some peaks and valleys in your budget and expectations with your vehicle as well. So if we can help you understand what your budget for maintenance is going to look like, as well as help us map out when things need to be scheduled, we both have an advantage in doing this. It's just going to help us make sure things get fit in a lot better. We can perform this today, and this is what it costs. And then they're all like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Now, we actually did sell inspections, by the way. They weren't just an add-on courtesy element in the shop, but an actual sold service that was aimed for a direct and specific benefit to them. The next thing is when we're talking on the repair with the vehicle, or talking on the vehicle with the customer, it isn't just about the repair, but we need to ask open-ended questions about how they're using these vehicles. This is the most important function of your conversation as a customer service rep up front with a client. It is to make sure you have it fully understood how they use this car. Some great examples of questions that I've learned to use is, how do you like your car? Kind of a key question for us with transmission work being at the forefront. We know if they don't like the car and it's going to have an expensive major repair, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to communicate that value, but we'll have to be prepared to do so. Michael, if there's any other good questions you like to raise, that's one of my favorites.
One of my other favorites is, how long do you intend on keeping the car?
Yes, it's such a good one.
Because really, if we know that this customer, if it's a lease vehicle and they're only going to have it for 3 years, you're going to understand what their maintenance needs are going to be on that newer vehicle that doesn't need much anyway. But you also are going to know if it's a customer who purchased the vehicle and they say, no, we keep our cars, average 7 to 10 years. We know what kind of service they're going to be needing to maintain that vehicle for that time frame. So knowing upfront what their expectation is for keeping the vehicle is going to let us create a path for their maintenance.
Oh man, well put. And from there, it's just a matter of documenting things. We call it the RVH, the reason the vehicle's here. This is something that any auto text user becomes familiar with. A lot of other systems call it other things, purpose of the visit, concerns. It doesn't matter. The point is that this information has to become pretty obvious for the technician who's going to be doing the inspection later on. We want to make sure that they do know these things, because part of the inspection is going to become a collaboration. And this is where the technicians really start to come into this. We want to make sure that you're actually letting them in on the value of this inspection as well. We're not going to talk about how the techs are building the inspection day. We have other conversations on that where we talk about pictures and videos and some of the strategies that technicians get to use to do a good inspection. This conversation, we're going to assume that a good inspection is being done, but I want to make sure that responsibility, that professional responsibility that I described again, is make sure the vehicle's safe, reliable, and efficient. This is very much the part where the technician comes into that equation. Service advisors have to understand that the people behind them working in the bay are capable of all three of those things. And that is a fundamental principle that has to be maintained constantly. I can't stress that enough. If technicians are looking at inspections as a sales gimmick themselves, or as something to just try to look for things that they need to present that may or may not be there, that is absolutely incorrect. I don't care if the inspection's got everything all marked green on there. This is a critical document to manage this vehicle through the visit. Hopefully it is just maintenance. Hopefully that client is maintaining their car so good that the breakdown repair cycle that we're used to seeing is less of an issue.
I think one of the other things that we're making a very good point on is we're trying to create clients. We don't want customers. So we're really trying to create clients by doing this. People who are going to schedule their appointments ahead and come in on a regular basis. And all of these factors come into play to turn that person from a customer into a client.
Yeah. Customer to client conversion is a specific term that I've heard taught in a number of different coaching groups out there. And perhaps some of our clients as well have heard us talk on this before too. That difference is palatable. And that, as a service advisor, as a service consultant, is one of our primary functions. I can't stand it when a service advisor is looking in at an inspection process, decides for some reason not to even request the inspection by a technician, and has already sort of lost this individual that they're working with as a customer. When this customer has already dictated that they don't want an inspection and other things, we've skipped some steps with this person. Maybe they don't understand what we're actually trying to do. Maybe we're not even having that conversation at our counter. And this is where the shop owners really have to have a conversation with your front staff, because if it's okay and not measured or managed or even a goal to convert clients into people who care about inspections and want those results, we need to back up and figure out why this is even a part of our process to begin with, because that's usually going to result in some self-discovery there. And you may find some of your staff don't understand that why behind that inspection to begin with, technicians included. Pictures of items all the way through, good items. We always talk about that with technicians. Again, let's consider this as a given now and move into the actual responsibility of that advisor. Once an inspection has been submitted, DVI submitted, we're committing ourselves to a couple of basic things. And I try to think of acronyms. This industry so badly needs more of those, right? So I came up with REPS because this worked out really good with the words I like to use as I describe the actions the service advisor needs to take. This is how I look at it. You review all findings every single time you receive that inspection from a technician. You look at every image and note on there. You have to let the technicians work in building this come to fruition and then estimate all of those findings. So R for review, E for estimate, P is for preparing the presentation, and S is for sending it. This is where we can jump into the tool for just a moment here. I want to pull this onto my screen, and we'll go into Craig's Awesome Auto. And here I have a vehicle that's had a completed inspection. We're using Joe Paluca here. We're going to dive into this just for a moment. There's a couple of things that I want you to consider when you're preparing a presentation. The first and foremost item here is the RVH. And you're going to notice I have some tagged items on mine. Tagged items just mean that items found in the inspection are linked to the reason the vehicle's here. We're connecting the items in our routine inspection to the client's main concern. Let that sink in for a minute, because what we're not doing is just performing an inspection oblivious to the client's main concern. We're actually connecting the dots for them so that they understand how their main concern is connected to all these other items. And when these things are linked, we can bounce back and forth easily inside of this document. The technician's notes are right there. Now, tagging these is done by the advisor by clicking this edit button. Different tools have different strategies for this. Auto Text Me is brilliant in this regard, because we have not only the ability to tag items and filter them out, we can untag things as well. You can see how these filters work together, or you can scroll through and find those red and yellow items. And notice it's down here. Maybe I think tie rods are the most important thing for this particular visit. I think most people can agree that as far as the things on this list, if you've got a tie rod problem, this should be taken care of upfront and first. So I like to organize the hierarchy of these jobs in order that I advise the client take care of. So this is where some consultation allows you to get organized right here inside of the presentation. It helps you stay on point when you're discussing this with the client. And Michael, I know you teach this too. We have this as a separate screen, right?
It's 100%. It boils down to, if you had a customer in front of you, or over the phone, you're always going to discuss the item that the customer came in for first before you bring up other items. You're going to make sure they're aware of the things. When customers are left to their own, again, this is setting expectation. If a customer's looking at a report and just sees a bunch of things, they have no clue what actually might fix their problem, because they don't know that both the tie rod end and a sway bar link can cause a noise up front. These are things they don't know. So they might only think one thing needs to be addressed. You're going to do the same thing over the phone. You want your DVI to do that same, have that same principle where the customer is getting the information in the order they want to receive it.
Absolutely. And I'll say this too, how your inspection is built is a determining variable in this, because preparing a presentation has to take in consideration what your clients do understand. And I've learned the hard way through a lot of this. I used to have a DVI very early on in my career that just said front brakes. Now I learned how to break it out into individual line items. But my reason for this is pretty straightforward. When I actually have here we'll pull in a picture of brake rotor, for example. If we have this image on this inspection, and this is a true story, I had a client who came in, they had a transmission failure months back, and now they liked our service enough. They want us to do brakes. He said, Craig, normally I do my own brakes, but I don't have the time. So I want you to take care of them today. And I say, okay, that's fantastic. We would love to do that. And then we're very good at brakes. So let's do this. And I took pictures, and this is what one of them looked like. It was in a line item. It did not say front rotors. It said front brakes. called the guy up. He was kind of one of those clients that was really easy to deal with anyways. I said, all right, this is what it's going to be. This is what it costs. We'll have it done by 3. And he said, no, don't do the rotors today. I just want to throw some pads on there. And he said it super confident, super cool. He knew what he was doing, and he's going to save some money. And he was a participant in this conversation in a meaningful way in his mind. And I'm looking at the image on my screen, and I know he opened the inspection. I could tell. And I was like, no, we can't. No, we're not going to reuse rotors that look like this. In Michigan, by the way, they're a little more rusty than this. Let's be clear. We also don't turn a lot of rotors and resurface them. We replace them. There's not much left to turn. So I was explaining to him, and it really kind of turned into an argument over the phone. I finally got to the point where I didn't feel like we were looking at the same thing at all. He had opened the inspection and he had looked at the image, but again, it said front brakes. What happened? I said, hey, and his name was Dan. I said, Dan, I need you to open up that inspection again and take a look at these rotors, because I feel like we're talking about 2 different things. And he obliged, and he did. And he said what I will never forget. He said, oh, those are the rotors. Okay. I was picturing something else. Whoa. Gears turning in my mind, of course. How many conversations have I been having verbally and with mismarked or mislabeled items where the client was drawing conclusions, even with an image, based on what they thought was knowledge, but really wasn't. He didn't know the difference between pads and rotors. This guy probably knew enough to put parts that he'd taken off on the same way. If he actually even did his own brakes, he was a pilot. He probably knew plenty about mechanics. But this is where it comes into the image markups. You can do this as the advisor. Do this on every image you want. Say rotors, deeply grooved, need to be replaced. See, I type as fast as I talk. No, but now when they have this sort of thing, I've had other calls go the complete other direction, where you get a cool customer again, and they say this sort of thing. They say, yeah, Craig, I see those rotors need to be replaced. We better take care of those today, huh? And I say, that's absolutely right. Did they know 2 minutes before they saw that picture with the caption that that's what had to take place? Maybe not. But did I educate them? Yeah, I did. Simple tool. They get to tell me confidently. They even get to act like they know what they're talking about. We've demystified some things that probably weren't very clear in their mind, because frankly, like we mentioned earlier, until that car breaks down, they're not confronted with this sort of complex, chaotic, interesting, integral stuff that makes their car go, or in this case, stop. Now, with that done, we are prepared to send this out, right? We want to edit this. We want to review some things. I do want to draw attention to one thing as well. Make sure you're looking at all the items that are relevant on here. I like to look at all good, all bad, and all items with pictures. And some of you that are using private notes, those are good toggles to turn on too. Service advisors, if you're not using this to filter out your screen, you got to remember that on a longer inspection form, there's a lot of stuff on here. And we do want to narrow our focus down too. We are people too. We have limited brain calories. We don't want to have an overwhelming experience looking through all this stuff. So even this simple view will show me anything marked red or yellow. I can remove the attachment option. And now I'm just looking at red and yellow items. These are items that need to be estimated. Simple as that. 100% of everything found gets estimated. People have heard the 300% rule mentioned by us several times. 100% of all vehicles get inspected. 100% of the findings get estimated. And 100% of the estimated items get presented to the customer. Should have made a slide on that one, shouldn't we, Michael?
I was thinking about the 300% last night too. That's
And it's good. And I know a lot of shops don't all do inspections on every car, but that's okay. We'll talk about that later too. But that's preparing the presentation. Next step finally is, of course, to send it. Text and email is still my preferred route. I always do both. And I'm going to make this point again. Email, folks, is not dead. This should be a part of our initial conversation with the client. We do want to make sure we have every means of getting that email in there. In auto text me, if you've collected that in your shop management system, the integration is going to pull that information in for you. You will not have double entry. You can text and email this directly. The customer will receive it. Now let's go back into our deck here. We have talked about sending that report after preparing the presentation, and we're going to beat you up on this. And we're going to do this with good reason. Michael and I have access to the reports. We can look at everybody's send rate. We can tell when. Hey, and there are some A+ shops in attendance on this webinar. And And you guys should be very proud. I consider a good send percentage ratio of completed inspections anything above 80% at this point, because I do understand that occasionally there are situations that it just simply cannot be delivered for a variety of reasons. But I also like to set my goal enough that I can achieve it. 100% is not unobtainable. And I know for a fact there are multiple shops watching here right now that have achieved 99% or 102% numbers on their send ratio of inspections. That should be your goal. Start incrementally. We're going to talk on this. I want to ask a question, and this is where I would invite a poll here as well. I want to know what you guys think on this question. This is the wrong poll. Sorry, we need the one on the question of when is it not okay? When is it okay not to send an inspection? And feel free to put this in chat as well if you have a strong opinion on one of these. These are the ones that Michael and I have heard. Customers in the lobby waiting, so I didn't send it to them. I just showed them maybe on the screen. Tech didn't give me pictures, so there wasn't really much anything to see, or there was nothing bad in the inspection. That's my favorite one, by the way. There's just all green items, so we didn't send it to the customer. Or this one's weird. This one's really weird to me. The fleet question. If someone's not sending it because it's a fleet customer, kind of odd. I get it on one hand. A lot of our fleet customers just fixed whatever we recommended and it was wonderful, but why not send it, right? They fix anything anyway. One of those customers, hey, we all have them. They are not the majority unless you're talking to a very egotistical shop owner who loves to brag, in which case all their customers are like, here's the checkbook, right? I love that conversation. It's fiction. But anyways, just tires. That's a good one as well. But this is one of those polls. I really like seeing anybody's answer on this. And I love seeing the answers coming in as well, because I think we've made a dent, Michael. But I'm really loving the answers on that one on the bottom. The customer declined an inspection, and I've seen several people have that, and the fleet got an answer too. This is good. What do you think on this, Michael?
It's falling in line a little bit of what I was actually expecting from our people. Also going to give a little shout out to Dave there as he's following along with this, as he's screaming in the chat. Should be 100 every time. Remember, it's always, you always send it. Dave,
yes.
Dave, really appreciate how much you get what we do here. Appreciate it. But yeah, it's interesting to see these. And of course, when we have our clients in who have been through our training. So a lot of times they're going to, they're going to have a lot of our ways about them. So yeah. I do appreciate.
I love that people answered the question. The customer declined an inspection there. And I specifically put it in, not as a trap. I don't believe in that much. But the point that I want to make on that piece is that even if they declined an inspection overall, we have that responsibility, that professional responsibility to make sure the vehicle is safe, reliable, and efficient. I have never gone under a car, even for an oil change or anything else, where I didn't do at least a cursory, simple look over, hand on some tie rods, even taking the pry bar out, checking some of the basic joints like control arms and ball joints and those sort of things. The things that are truly, sincerely, downright awful risky if we don't draw attention to them. And I have seen enough in my 20 years in that shop where people don't mention clunks in their steering wheel. It came in very gradually. It boggled my mind why someone thought, it's been a while since I changed my transmission fluid. I'm going to go get that changed today. We put the car on the rack and this tie rod's ready to fall off the thing. And it happens so gradually. It's just, they figure how the car is. They're saying don't inspect sometimes, and it's really just a fear of being confronted with things that they just really don't want to deal with. And it is our job as advisors and as consultants in this matter to draw those out. If we find those things underneath the car, would we not show them, even if they decline the inspection?
Yeah, we're still going to show them those items. I mean,
we would walk them back and show them if we had to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If a customer was there waiting, we would go show them. We would talk to them about it. We would mention it. We would put it on the work order. We would, we're going to find these items. We have to share them with the customer. It's our duty to do so. How would you feel if you found something wrong with the car and you didn't tell it to the customer? And then that something happens, that customer ends up in an accident because of that.
Yep.
Guess who's going to probably end up being found liable even in some cases for that?
100%. And guess who in this room? I'm sure everybody here today has had someone come back with the ever sent you.
Yeah. Or the other thing is, this wasn't wrong when I brought it here.
Oh,
and there's the other side of that. This wasn't, before you touched my car, I was not having this problem. Now I have this problem after you fixed it. It's because you caused it.
Yep.
And again, the DVI being sent to the customer would show them these items that were bad, that might start making noise in a week or a day, or be brought to light in the near future, where they were going to come back and say it's something we did.
Yep. Well, here's a tip for you folks on that piece though, too. I don't want to just draw attention to that. Hey, customer decline inspection. I think you should send it, and why not? Here's a solution. I think you should have an inspection form that is just those 5, 6, 7 major points. They can be generic. They could be suspension, steering, instead of going line by item, and then having that picture or video of those things. Like, hey, this just takes literally a couple minutes to be able to put a 5, 6, 7 point inspection together. And it gives you that platform to be able to show them, hey, this stood out majorly. And when you have a video of something wiggling, it isn't just this old lore of the shop telling me, of course, they found something underneath there. I can't even go get an oil change for less than $1,000 anymore.
And I will even say, Craig, we have a very good express inspection that if you guys would like, I actually believe that you can download it yourself in our.
Actually, you might be able to attach the JSON file right there in the chat, Michael.
I believe it is already in the tool. If you go down into the tool, you can download from your templates on your.
Oh, that's true too. Yep.
On our question and answer page. Information page.
So let's move on from this point with the agreement that the best practice. Please, Greg, chime in.
I just wanted to stop you here. There's I think we've kind of hit on it just a minute, but I think this is important just to reiterate. Stephen has a great question here.
Great.
We always do an inspection, but do you always send a DVI when they decline an inspection?
I do. I always would. It wouldn't be my big, long inspection. I've met shops, and thanks, Greg, for the question. And thank you, Stephen. This is one of those things. Like, I know some shops that no matter what, and I disagree with this, like they'll do a 40, 50 point inspection for every oil change, even if the customer is not asking. I don't go to that level of detail. That's a sold inspection anyway, paid. And our shop, when we do that, I wouldn't do that many as a courtesy. But that courtesy 7, 5 point thing is just there. And you have this opportunity to tell the customer, like, we normally like to go a lot further these inspections, but every car, no matter what, we have to look at a few basic things. And this was obvious. It is our responsibility to point this out to you. I know it's not something that you want to hear. We can take care of these things, and they absolutely should be. If you believe in what you are presenting is truly, truly important, it's okay. I would rather upset the customer that direction than the other alternative, which is they drive off and something horrible happens. That'd be a lot harder for me to live with. And if they leave a negative review, because people can be fickle, well, we can talk about how to get better reviews coming in from the other people. Make sure we're asking for those. Don't let those people hold you hostage or dictate your policy at large. A few people complain. Most people are actually really nice and will appreciate the information, especially if you've done that consultative advising up front, folks. I'll draw attention back to that one point. If you found out, hey, they're young teenage drivers driving this car, for example, that came up in the conversation. All they wanted was the oil change today, but hey, look, this tie rod's there. You explain that with a nice motive visuals video and educational video attached in that DVI about how important these things are. When they're confronted with real information that helps them understand why this is so important to you, it's a different story than the narrative that might be spinning in their brain of, oh, you're the auto repair shop trying to sell me things.
Yeah, and you brought up motive visuals. Thank you. I was doing that for a later slide, but
nice.
The motive visuals in there is another thing that is really important in the digital sales process. Giving that customer the ability digitally and on their own, a simple video to watch to explain what a part is, what it does, and why they need it, and what could cause it to fail, saves a lot of time and gives them a lot of ammunition to make a good buying decision.
Yeah. Now here's an interesting question. When do we send the inspection? Let's agree, hey, we always send something. just pretty much every single time. I can't think of too many great exceptions. I could talk on every one of those other points too. Technicians taking too long or not enough pictures. There's all kinds of reasons you need to go back on your team and request additional details so that you have a high value document. And please never be the guy that says, I'm not sending it because there was only good items. Let me just get that out of the way. When somebody doesn't send an inspection, I assume they never looked at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you want to send them all the good items. You want them to be excited that their car's in good
your
shape.
Car's in great shape is a fun thing to receive. Yep. With a couple pictures of good things. Easy. Now, sending the inspection. I am one of these best practice fans. Absolutely. I like a lot of best practice, but I've been in the trenches long enough, as has Michael, and we have a differing opinion on here, Michael and I. I believe that it is okay to send that inspection before you've built the estimate. Michael is an adamant.
I feel the other way. I feel the other way because one, I'm a firm believer that Murphy's Law always kicks my butt in a regular basis. So I don't see a reason why you would not want to build the estimate prior to sending the DVI, because our whole goal is getting the customer to open the DVI in a really quick time frame and get a hold of us in a quick time frame. So if we're trying to do that in a quick time frame, we're giving ourselves a very small window to create the estimate. And I know that when I send that DVI report, if I didn't have that estimate ready and I'm like, I'm just going to go make that estimate right now, the phone's going to ring, a customer's going to walk in the door, someone's going to come interrupt me. And next thing I know, now it's been 10 minutes. Now the phone is ringing because the customer's looked at the DVI and they're calling me like I wanted them to. And now I don't have an estimate ready to discuss with them. And now I've failed my entire I have thrown away everything I did in my process. Because now I got to tell the customer, you know what, give me a couple minutes and I'll call you back and I'll get that. I'll be prepared for you. Okay. Now I'm going to play phone tag with that customer.
I hear you. I absolutely hear you. And I won't disagree. It is the best practice to have an estimate ready when you can. I will say that it is still acceptable. That inspection is done. You go ahead and hit send as soon as you can. Better than forgetting, first off. And secondly, the problem you described, I do believe is not a problem. They can call me and we're going to talk about what's wrong with their car. And we're going to do that completely oblivious for a moment on the cost of the repairs. Even if they ask me, I legitimately do not know in that moment the exact cost. But what they have told me, they're interested in it. They want it estimated. And they want it taken care of. This is a powerful position to be in as you build the estimate. And I have to tell you, in the times where I have employed this technique, they are the quickest authorization calls ever, where, hey, those items that we discussed, here's the estimate, and you could do it perfectly. We've already had that consultative relative sales call essentially without the cost, and authorize. They just say, okay, great, take care of it. When that is taken care of without that price question, even in the equation, pretty neat. I have one story, just one. And the reason I love this technique is because it was actually one of my first successful instances using a DVI. What was it? 2007 Honda Accord. Lady's name was June, and she wasn't sure it was worth fixing. We were brand new to this process. And so what I did is I said, June, you know what? I believe the car's worth fixing. I would probably buy this thing from you if you didn't think it's worth fixing, because it was only about 130,000 miles on a Honda. All my cars are like that. This is my opinion, but I'm biased in this. Obviously, I want to sell you transmission work here too. We're very good at fixing transmissions. Let us do this inspection. We're going to identify everything on this car that we can possibly see that's going to require maintenance. Guys, it was 5:00 when I sent it to her. I was getting ready to go out the door, and I didn't want to sit on it until the morning. I had talked to her, and she was curious to receive the results, was excited about her new technology to send pictures and all that stuff. I had amped that up quite a bit, sent it to her. And the next morning, on my voicemail, I wish to this day I had saved this message, because I'm not kidding. It went like this. Hi, Craig, it's June. I'd like you to go ahead with the transmission, the battery, the belt, the brakes, and the tires, but we're going to hold off on the shocks and struts for about 6 months. The only thing I'd estimated to that point and discussed with her was her transmission. I had not estimated a single one of those things. And of course, I did two things. First thing I did was, hey guys, I need you to go ahead and pull the transmission out of the Honda Accord. Right? And the second thing is I called and left a message for her, and I told her, hey, I'm going to go ahead and get the estimate together on these other items. We're going to get started on removing the transmission, and we'll be in touch. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. So I'd like to see a poll. Michael and I both giving points. Michael, you might have a few counterpoints to this as well. Who do you think's right? When it comes to sending these, is it critical to just follow rigidly the best practice of having the estimates built before you even share the results so you're ready for that sales call? Or
I don't know, Craig. I think we're going to find out pretty quickly here. The results of this are going to show what normally happens in life.
Oh yeah, no.
Because I looking at the comments, I can see quite a few people already.
I love this question. You know what my favorite thing about this question though is, Michael? We aren't even debating if we should send this thing anymore.
No, it's just a matter of when do you send it. It's always exactly. You're always sending it. That's not a debate. But there are fine points where you can do it ahead of time. I just know from my experience as a service advisor that I was always doing so many things at one time. Now, granted, I did not have digital inspections and digital workflows, and I had none of this when I was a service advisor. And this probably would have made my life a lot easier. But I just know that when I got into those times where if I promised the customer something and I didn't have it ready and it was that time, it made my job a little harder. And I'm not gonna.
Well, Michael,
take those risks.
I gave the story, but I still think you're winning this point. And Dave is absolutely right too. It's all about the process. Throwing my own words back at me here. And process exceptions are a risky business. I do think we made it clear that there is a clear best practice. I just want to also say, hey, if we're sending it at this point, I'm thrilled.
It's getting out. It is getting sent. That is true. And the funny thing is here, Craig, and I like that you did the counterpoint, but I will give that I do know that when you teach the process,
of course,
you teach building the estimate first. And I know that is the way you teach everybody else, because
I do teach that process, and it's not a trap to suggest the other way. There are moments where, hey, the estimate is enormously complex on a long process there. And I actually do like this for you advisors who might think that waiting customers shouldn't receive the inspection. This is a tool that can be used to help their patients get reset. If you're going to be a bit on getting that estimate together for something while they're sitting there, pop them the inspection. It resets their time. They might want to come up and talk to you, and you can tell them, it's like, hey, I'm working on that estimate right now. We're going to try to do the best we can on this to make sure it's advantageous. And if possible, then we'll see about getting it taken care of today. I'll get right back to here in maybe about 2 to 4 minutes or so. And boom, done. Right. That's okay. But
we just want to let people know though that there are two ways you can handle it, and there are situations where it can be both ways can work just fine. But we're going to drive home again that sending the DVI is 100% what we're after here.
Good job, Michael. You held the high ground.
I always do.
Now, this is where it comes into the final part here, right? This is where not the final part, but staging that final part. We want to get that approval call. And we've used this point many times. I like using the workflow to trigger this. Of course, we have that requires approval status. You see it on the bottom of our screen as well. Clicking that status and auto text me sends the message that we've looked over your vehicle and have your estimate ready. Call the shop when you can. The reason we do this is it's kind of psychological it's also practical. This is one of those win-wins for both the client, you, and the shop, because you as a service advisor have a unique advantage in texting the client to trigger them to call you. And the fact that you don't have to listen to the voicemail lady instruct you on how to leave a voicemail for the 10,000th time in your career. And I am not kidding. My head would go to the desk many times. I had to sit through that. It's the most frustrating thing to have your presentation all set. You make the call and you get that.
And those voicemails aren't even listened to after you leave.
No, they're calling you while you're leaving.
Because the customer calls you back and says, hey, and you just, did you listen? No, I didn't listen. You just said, now you have to say the whole thing over again. Voice
100%. Yep. Sending this text has another advantage too. One, it's text. The average text is viewed within 3 minutes, anyways. And by the time you're done leaving a voicemail and listening to the voicemail lady, it's probably been about that long anyhow. So this is just quicker. You're on to the next thing. Keep your tabs up and ready. If you're using cloud-based systems, it's easy. You can have your whole sales presentation off on one screen while you go start multitasking with something else. That call comes in, you're ready to go. Pull those tabs back over on your main screen, and it's go time. But here's the thing. When the customer is initiating that sales call, they are in an initiating mindset. This means that they're in a sense of control already in this conversation. And it does not bother me if I'm not steering that conversation all the way through, because the first part of a good sales call is listening to the client. This happens, by the way, only after I know that the client has viewed the inspection. In most cases, if they have not viewed the inspection and it's been 10, 20 minutes since I sent them, I didn't cover this earlier, but this is one of those major pieces. Before we send this text, I do want to know that they've had that chance. And if they have opened it, I've given them 10 to 15 minutes of view time with that inspection, if possible. If it's a longer inspection, that's more than enough. If it's a shorter inspection, you can bet you can do it a lot quicker. But when they call you, you'll know before you even pick up that phone if they viewed that inspection. And I still will tell you the same way I start this conversation the same way. Oh, here's our slide on this, of course. Reviewing the customer insights 10, 15 minutes and being prepared after you sent that text for that call to come in. But I always ask the question up front in the conversation, have you had a chance to review the inspection? I don't let my clients know that I have a superpower ability in auto text me to see how much of the inspection they've viewed. I am showing the customer insights on this image on the right that we do, of course, show the service advisor how long a client has spent in each category, how long they've viewed certain images, what images they have even viewed. This is really useful. If anyone needs to see where that's located, the customer insights, please let us know. I'll happily pop the tool on the screen to show you. But that is helpful because I already have a good idea of where this conversation is probably going to want to go. I invite the customer then to open up the inspection inside of that call. And this is all the sales call best practice type stuff, which I don't think can ever be done the same way twice, because we're dealing with human beings. It just helps to have a plan in place. Michael and I say this all the time. We teach a process, not the process. We know no script is ever going to completely encompass every scenario that you're going to run across. But what we're listening for in that initial part of the conversation is any of their initial questions that come into this. If you invited them, open the inspection, they decline, it's worth mentioning that you can email it to them if that hasn't already been done, because let's face it, most people are sitting in front of a computer. Every time I've invited a client to open up the inspection on the call, most of them, probably better than 60% of the time, and it's not science, but it's gut feel, they would open it up, better than half. And that's powerful. Most people, when you ask them to do something, it's just human nature. They really want to oblige and have a nice time. They don't want to disappoint you. And that's just dealing with people over time. You start to pick up on those things. Listening. We asked questions up front in the visit. We know how they like their car, but listening for those things that they're telling us now, a lot of stuff comes out by you. Stop talking. Sometimes we talk ourselves out of the sale. Everyone knows this happens. And just let them tell you things. It's going to give you an idea of where you need to go next. Then if they don't have questions, you ask them, do you have any questions on anything you've seen in here? If they have nothing, say, okay, great. There's just a couple of things I want to point out, and I have a few options for you. What we don't want to do is go line by line, by line, by line, by line, by line, by line, with every single individual thing. This is going to lead nowhere. And we just don't have the attention span with clients anymore for that. But when we are gaining approvals, we do want to track those approvals inside of Auto Text Me. I do not ask the customers to do that for us. Now, I'm going to give you a simplified approach. And I've heard this taught a number of different ways by a number of different people, but the best method that I've used personally is this, where you have that 3-option sales technique. We did this with transmission overhauls too, even if it was the only thing we were doing. Option 1, we're going to take care of your main concern. This is what it's going to take. Option number 2, we're going to take care of the main concern and all the red items that we found under your inspection. And option 3, we're going to bring this thing full green. We're going to take care of your main concern, the red and the yellow items on this inspection. This is everything that we've seen on the vehicle. By giving packages and having a dollar amount all set and figured out, and Michael, best practice with a note there, still great to have all that. You obviously want to have your estimate done in the sales call piece here. This is powerful, because what I don't want to see is a situation where clients are overwhelmed with options. And this is a day and age where we are seeing multiple systems introducing electronic authorization forms. We've even been requested multiple times to include one. Not saying we wouldn't do it either, but we still have what I would consider a conventional sales approach, where that sales call is the absolute most important relational moment where we're counseling and advising the client on the things that we're recommending, prioritizing those repairs, discussing those things, and guiding them into a decision based on the information in that inspection. And what I am seeing instead is another thing starting to take root in the industry, and that is inspection and estimate all in one. Poof. All right, go ahead and click that, Mr. Customer.
Go click your buttons and I won't even talk to you. Great, thanks, and go about your day. It's a terrible, I don't want to say it's a terrible practice. It's not a practice I would personally choose. And the reason, my main reasoning for that is a lot of times I'm going to end up having to call the customer anyway, because they're going to decline something that I'm going to try to advise them, hey, I feel if you're going to do this, you should be doing this instead. This is a more important fix than that. If you're only, you're getting up, you have $500 that you're saying in your mind you want to spend. You looked at what was there, you picked what got you there, you got the 500, you quit hitting buttons and you declined everything else.
I was talking with Chris the other day. He had read an article. It's an interesting article that was a study by Microsoft, that the average person's attention span now is less than a goldfish. I think goldfish was about 9-second attention span, notoriously low. And the average person now has got about a 7-second attention span. When you have an estimate, bunch of numbers next to yes, no toggles and a few part names that you're not necessarily familiar with because you're not a car guy, you're a customer, for Pete's sake. Yes, yes, yes. And then it goes no, 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 no. And it's just basically overwhelming. One of our good friends, Jeremy O'Neill, I remember, and I do recommend if you ever get a chance, his digital sales class, fantastic. His all-day class. There was a great point that I like to quote that he mentioned in there. And he mentioned that watching this, he would observe that once people start going red on those forms, they never come back. People run out of brain calories. Too many options. They're going to start saying no to things, not because they don't actually want them, although who wants to fix cars? They just are overwhelmed with choices. Same thing happens in the toothpaste aisle at the grocery store. Like, holy Pete, I just need something to clean my teeth. Which one's going to make my car go in this case? Or which one's going to make my teeth clean? It's not supposed to be this difficult. In this homework assignment for you guys, go to a nice restaurant sometime, hopefully healthy in your area. And instead of just looking at everything on the menu, ask the server what they recommend. And you'll find that a good server in a restaurant is a very similar personality to a good service advisor in a shop. And you maybe even want to hire them because you'll hear them. There's people of all different skill levels on this, but they're going to guide you through some things based on hopefully asking you first what kind of things you like. And then it goes from there. And then they'll make a recommendation. I usually go with the recommendations and love my meal in a restaurant. So, hey, same thing can happen in a shop, and look for those people. It might even help your front counter staff situation.
Yes. Well, I have hired servers.
Yeah. Lots of shops have
very good service advisors.
Yep. Now the electronic approval form, by the way, awesome tool. I'm not trying to say it isn't. I use it after the sales call. And it's summarized. Folks, the presentation is not the invoice. I was one of these guys for ages. My estimate was like this work of art. And I thought, wow, it's laid out so great. This customer's going to freaking love this thing, right? Nope, they don't. You know how much they look at that? No, they don't. It's overwhelming. It's a list of parts. And in Michigan, we have to itemize everything. So even building the invoice in a way that makes a cohesive presentation to the client, forget it. You can do that much easier in a conversation. Now, inspection-based follow-ups. This is the last piece because, folks, when you're gaining those approvals on these things, auto text me. We have that yes/no approval inside of the form. I'm going to bring that over just a moment here. I want to highlight this because this is a oft underutilized feature. And the reason I hear that it's oft underutilized is, it's not automated. Well, folks, this is actually really hard to automate because different shop management systems have different integration levels, but someday I'm sure it'll happen. We have these yes/no approvals. These are here for a reason. This is for you. Since this is something you're leveraging in your sales call, it's open, it's on your desk. You know it's set and ready, and you know what that customer is approving on this visit. And you mark them as it goes. This is the best time to do it, but it isn't the only time. The reason it's valuable to do is because this represents real opportunity that's in our shop for us to follow up on later on. If it is an unaddressed inspection item, and I hope you estimated it with that 300% rule. I hope it was estimated and presented as well. We have the option in the rainy day folder to resend results, and we get to have another opportunity to review this as well. And anything that was outstanding from a previous visit, if we can look back at records and say they took care of it, you can audit it one more time, but I want to resend that inspection to the client. And I want to invite them to bring it back in for us to take care of these items. We have an opening today. This is all set and ready to go in every level of the packages that you have with Auto Text Me. You can templatize this, and yes, this part can be automated. I will simply tell you this again. We've talked in a rainy day folder before. The automation piece, not something I would toggle on until you have that established discipline on hitting that yes, no toggle on the approved work inside of the inspection.
Yeah, you don't want to be sending inspections to customers that have items saying they need to be addressed that they took care of. It's going to look negative on you. So
any other type of marketing, folks, I was always hesitant to use it because I didn't feel that big blasts were always relevant to clients. I could run a promotion on shock struts. It might be the week where brakes are doing the brakes for breast type thing. I mean, if you don't need any of those things at the time, those promotions and things feel gimmicky at times, even if it's for a great cause. It just feels off to be promoting something that someone may or may not need. This is the best way to reach out because you did your professional responsibility. You made sure the vehicle is safe, reliable, and efficient. And you know through the inspection what's coming up for this individual. This becomes consulting and advising, not just in a moment where you're trying to sell the work, but truly looking out for the customer to bring them back in, keep that relationship going forward. These tools are right there at your fingertips. Now, we have just a couple minutes left here, and I do want to make sure that we ask if you have any final questions. We would be happy to answer those. And this is a great opportunity. Greg, if you've got any prioritized for us, go ahead and let us know.
Absolutely, guys. Stephen asked earlier when we were talking about client or the customer insights piece of it, is there a way to know that they had opened the tire or alignment history sections of the DVI?
Ooh, they should. Yes, that should show up there. I didn't do one on this example here, but it would show up as a category that gets viewed. It should. So definitely look for that. And I would, if you don't see it there, direct them into it. I will have to re-verify that myself in an actual test, but I know I've seen it in the past. So, yep, you should see that in that. And I did that quickly, folks. I'll do that one more time. You hit the down arrow. Hopefully that's a green DVI. Obviously, that's the only way that's going to give you insights. And you'll be able to see that in here. And I believe that's in the actual DVI report as well. You don't need the ticket on the board to look at those customer insights. You can actually go and look at it here. And mind you, demo store, folks. I didn't do a lot of inspections. Sections viewed, it should show up in there if that was a viewed thing, because we show you that for each individual item. Lots of great data in that DVI report. It's in the reports button, DVI report, customer insights, and you get some fun tools in there.
Excellent. Stephen, if that didn't answer your question, let us know. We'll follow up after the meeting here for sure. Also, Kareem asked, with the TechMetric integration, will declined jobs carry over to Auto Text Me?
Ooh, not yet in that regard. We do actually see them, mind you. We're not using that data in the marketing pieces yet. The eventual future for this is going to be that rainy day folder will be able to leverage declined services. I do make the point that that rainy day piece is always best aimed first at the inspection. We're going to keep, I believe, both elements in there regardless. So you'll have the option of declined service that were estimated or just the inspection. But we know as shop owners that it doesn't matter how good our staff is, they don't always estimate everything red or yellow. So if we ignore the estimate piece as well in the rainy folder, we only looking at declined services in the shop management system. Again, it just, the final point on it is you don't always see everything that existed on that car.
Yeah.
I love it on the inspection. I just wish people use the yes, no toggles more, or that we could automate that piece of it.
There's going to be one more piece I'm actually going to bring up on this when it comes to the DVI in the process that we didn't touch on earlier that I wanted to, is the the act of actually sending the text message for the check-in and the inspecting, and not being the DVI as the first text message you're sending the customer. You do not want to send the customer a link to something as the very first communication you've had with them via text message. People are kind of conditioned not to click on random links. But if you're building the text message up with the check-in, the inspecting, then when they get the DVI form, they're going to be a lot more inclined to open that DVI.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, I saw your question as well. What we charge for inspection, we had a $90 initial assessment that we would do on most vehicles that came in. That was included typically a code scan as well. But we also tried to upsell towards a $180 comprehensive inspection. It's about an hour and a half. It was better than our pre-purchase inspection. We have another webinar we did. It's on our YouTube channel. It's called Your Shop's Digital Inspection Process. I think that's the one where we dove into that a little bit further. And ultimately, the goal is to get the client to want to upgrade into that larger inspection form, because that's the one I would use to really map out the whole big deal. But yeah, different clients, different levels. You get good at selling those. I had a service advisor who refused to because he didn't see the value, but it was comically just because he didn't understand the value of inspections. I think once your whole team is behind the true value of these things, it gets a lot easier to sell those. Courtesy inspection, by the way, I also discussed that 7 to 12 minutes of a technician's time. It's usually under 20 points at a courtesy level. And we would still do those if it was in for a major repair that was already pre-identified. We would always have some base level one. Yeah, and Groove Glove is an excellent piece too. Folks, we are a minute over, but if there's any further questions or comments, happy to hang out just a little bit further and answer that. Otherwise, Michael, any closing remarks?
I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. I love when we get to talk process. This is kind of what we do and what we get excited to do. So being able to get together and chat about this always turns into a good day. So
yeah, and a healthy debate today as well, sir. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
All right, folks. Well, hey, next time I see some of you, I think it'll be at Vision in Kansas City. I hope some of you are going to come and join me and Chris in our class. We'll be talking about change management. No, it will not be a class on auto text me. We will not talk product in a training event such as that, especially. But I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. Hope you have a good time. Enjoy the rest of your week, folks. See you soon.
Bye, everyone.